Guys, there's an important case going up before the Supreme Court this morning. It was argued beginning at 10 a.m. And we have the audio because they release audio on the big cases. What this case is about, and we fronted it for our audience earlier this week, is alleged conversion therapy bans, which is just such a bastardization of what conversion therapy is. That's not really what this case is about. Conversion therapy is a thing that parents used to do to little gay kids in the 1950s. Like, you're not gay, you're fine, you're straight, don't like boys. And send them into therapy where the therapist would be like, you're not gay, you like straight, you're straight, you like girls, girls, girls. And try to convince these boys that, whatever. Okay, so that's what conversion therapy is. Colorado glomming onto a term that is pretty universally condemned. I mean, some Christian circles still believe it can happen, and some people still believe it can happen. So with all due respect to them, but that term is basically loathed. And glomming onto that fact, Colorado decided to ban the practice via legislation. And it does cover the gay thing, but it's all about the trans thing. And their law says that therapists are not allowed to converse with their patients, children who say that they're gender confused, in a way that would push them back to their actual biological sex. That too would be considered conversion therapy, as opposed to just therapy, where you're actually trying to search for, is this real, this gender confusion, or are you just having home problems? Are your parents getting a divorce? Have you been bullied? Are you a young girl going through puberty? What could possibly be the cause of this other than actual gender dysphoria? It's insane, and it's really dangerous what they've done in Colorado, which is a lunatic state. I mean, truly, like, the legislation coming out of there on the trans issue is as far left as it gets. So they passed this ban, and a therapist files a lawsuit saying, I can't do my job with this. I'm not just going to affirm a child I don't actually think is trans because of a law that says I'm not allowed to discuss with him whether he really is or isn't, or really is having gender confusion. So the underlying litigation all lined up in favor of Colorado, in favor of letting the ban stand. And then thankfully the high court took the case, which is good. That's a good sign. They didn't want to just let the lower court decision stand. And they're hashing it out right now. And we pulled a soundbite. In this soundbite, we've got both Justice Alito, who of course is a conservative, and Justice Kagan, who definitely is not, questioning Shannon Stevenson, the Colorado Solicitor General, top appellate lawyer. And you're going to hear some discussion in here about viewpoint discrimination, which is the position of those challenging the Colorado ban. The therapist is saying, this is basically a free speech case. You're trying to tell me that I'm not allowed to say, are you really trans, young man? Or could it be something else? You're trying to clip my speech because you don't want my viewpoint that maybe he's not trans making its way into my therapist's office. So that's what they're talking about when you hear that term. Let's play it.
In the first situation, an adolescent male comes to a licensed therapist and says he's attracted to other males, but he feels uneasy and guilty about those feelings. He wants to end or lessen them, and he asks for the therapist's help in doing so. The other situation is a similar adolescent male comes to a licensed therapist, says he's attracted to other males, feels uneasy and guilty about those feelings, and he wants the therapist's help so he will feel comfortable as a gay young man. It seems to me your statute dictates opposite results in those two situations.
As I heard your examples, I think they would both be permissible because it didn't sound like in either case the goal was to actually change sexual orientation.
I guess I had the same kind of question that Justice Alito had. I mean, if we assume, for example, and this is a big assumption on your part, but just assume that we're in normal free speech land rather than in this kind of doctor land. And if a doctor says, I know you identify as gay, and I'm going to help you accept that. And another doctor says, I know you identify as gay, and I'm going to help you to change that. And one of those is permissible, and the other is not. That seems like viewpoint discrimination.
I don't disagree with that, Justice Kagan, and that's why medical treatment has to be treated differently. Because anytime you exclude one harmful practice, you are by definition saying these things are allowed because they are not harmful, and these things are excluded because they are harmful. That's the driving force behind regulating the particular practice.
All right. And that top lawyer for Colorado's argument, which is, I agree, this is viewpoint discrimination, but we're allowed to do it in the medical community, is exactly what we heard on NPR this morning from Nina Totenberg, who's their Supreme Court reporter, who is an absolute bully, nasty person. I was there for years covering the high court when she was there because she's 200 years old. And trust me, this is not a nice person. But listen to her summary of this case this morning to the NPR listeners.
I guess when advocates of conversion therapy hear that their treatments are discredited, they just don't believe the medical associations.
They note that the American Psychiatric Association actually listed homosexuality as a mental disorder until 1973. Attorney General Weiser says that medical science evolves over time, and there were times when we didn't know that smoking cigarettes, for instance, that they cause cancer. But now we do know that, and it's wrong, he says, for a doctor to tell people to smoke cigarettes 3 packs a day and tell them don't worry about the health effects. He says that would be substandard care, just like conversion practices are substandard care.
Can you believe that, Charlie? That's Nina Totenberg trying to say a therapist just actually doing a full-throated explanation with a child on why they might be feeling gender dysphoric or gender confusion is akin to forcing cigarettes on them or saying cigarettes are healthy, you should smoke those.
So as you suggest, the problem here is with the analogy. There are so many bases being stolen here. This is not a free speech case in the sense that we would usually think of free speech in America, where effectively anything goes. The question posed by Sotomayor did draw the right distinction. Structurally, we do, of course, impose certain rules on medicine because we regulate medicine. And so what the people who want Colorado's law to stand will say is, well, if your doctor told you to stick a knife through your calf, is that free speech? Well, no. Or if your doctor told you to go smoke cigarettes and it's good for you, is that free speech? Well, no. We do regulate medicine, and there are some questions that are now beyond doubt. The idea that this is one of them is so preposterous that it defies belief. This should be laughed out of court. If anything, the rules should run in the other direction, or at least they should acknowledge that up until about 10 years ago, this was considered absolute lunacy. So for a state to go from all of human history to you are not allowed to question this as a doctor is ridiculous. And yes, there is a free speech element there, because when a matter, medical or not, is an ongoing question of public debate, is an ongoing question of medical inquiry. And just as a sidebar, I don't trust a lot of the medical organizations that were referenced. So, no, I mean, like on NPR, of course, they started listing all of these institutions. They have lost their credibility, and for good reason, because they will just produce false evidence in response to social pressure. But forget that for a moment. This is an ongoing matter of legal dispute, political dispute, medical dispute, philosophical dispute. You cannot intervene, as Colorado has said, and put your finger on the scale in the direction of the innovation and expect not to be challenged on it. It is such a dishonest comparison.
Yes, so well said. Charlie, NR's Ed Whelan just posted this. Sure seems like there could be 9-0 agreement that strict scrutiny applies, which would be good. That means we're going to apply the most strict scrutiny against this law and to see whether it basically the law will likely fall. It's almost impossible to pass that standard. The court might divide on whether it should go ahead and apply strict scrutiny itself, thus striking down the law, or remand for the lower courts to do so. He writes, I'd expect the majority to apply the strict scrutiny. Colorado effort to defeat standing seems to have failed. So it sounds like it's been so far a very bad day for Colorado, to the point where Ed thinks we could be getting a 9-0 ruling on this If we did, that would just be so beautiful. We almost never get them. And for them to send a message like that on an issue like this would be actually quite bold.
Yeah, so when you have Alito and was it Kagan? You played a clip
Kagan.
from making exactly the same point for the same reason. That's not a very good sign when you're the lawyer on the other side. And the idea that everyone in the medical profession, including therapists, just has to accept gender dysphoria as, oh, that's the way you are, and I can't talk to you about it, is insane. And as we all know, gender dysphoria is associated with other forms of trauma, with other disorders, autism, childhood abuse, all that. And that's not going to come up. We're just supposed to accept the dysphoria. I remember a couple of years ago, Megyn, talking to a friend, there was a story about Megan Fox, the very successful and attractive actress, having some form, the story didn't stipulate what it was, some form of body dysphoria, right? Clearly, totally irrational, right? But when she goes to talk to a therapist, the therapist is supposed to say, oh yeah, you're ugly, or you're too skinny, or whatever it is, just because she has this irrational belief about her own body. It is insane and should never stand.
And all these therapists not allowed to exercise their expertise in how to flesh out an issue and see what is really bothering someone, as we've heard so many times from the detransitioners.
There can't be a Christian therapist in Colorado anymore if this law stands.
Exactly right. Go ahead, Charlie.
Just to add another stolen base here, and of course Colorado knows this and the activists know this, which is why they're pushing this. There is a big difference here. So I am a pro-gay conservative. I always have been. I think people are born that way. I was born straight. Some of my friends were born gay. If you say to a therapist or a doctor or your parents, I think I'm gay, and then you subsequently decide that you're not, what have you really lost? But if you say now, well, actually, I was born in the wrong body, that unlocks the next step, which is the immediate movement into very often physical and irreversible so-called gender-affirming care. It's not something that you can say, I was wrong about that, or it was a phase, in the same way as you could with most other of the controversial gender and sexuality questions. And they know that. So the stakes here are much, much higher. That's another reason why you shouldn't shut down this speech, because we know what happens next, Megyn. The 12-year-old who gets affirmed in their conception of themselves, the next day they get affirmed in their hormones or in surgery. And then they end up at 18 years old saying, God, I actually was just a tomboy, but now I have had my private parts cut off.
That's why Abigail Shrier named her book Irreversible Damage. That's what comes next. Did you know gold is up around 40% this year? That's not speculation, it's reality. And if a portion of your savings is not diversified into gold, you are missing the boat. Here are the facts. Inflation is still too high. The US dollar is still too weak. And the government debt is still growing. This is why central banks are flocking to gold. They're the ones driving prices up to record highs. But it's not too late to buy gold from Birch Gold Group and get in the door now. Birch Gold will help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into one in gold. You don't pay a penny out of pocket. Just text MK to 989898 and claim your free info kit. There's no obligation, just useful information. The best indicator of the future is the past, and gold has historically been a safe haven. Text MK to 989898 right now to claim your free info kit on gold. MK to 989898. Protect your future today with Birch Gold. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.